So, let's just get started. So the notes are linked in the thing. So this is the welcome to the community meeting for the 9th of March, 2021, if you're in America. Oh, maybe the 10th if you're in Australia. So, as normal, is Yanis here so he can give a release update for the 1.3 release?
Hi, Matthew. Yes, let's go over the release update. So I will start asking various working groups about their blockers. Let's start with the docs. I've seen some activity there.
Well, can we just start with Can we just start with going over for people who don't know what's going on the beginning part, like just saying so March 15th is expected to be.
Sure. Let me repeat it. So March 15th is expected to be the date that we got the release candidate for Kubeflow manifests.
Wait, sorry.
For the Kubeflow.
Wait, that's not what we said before, right? Do you mean 1.3 is the feature freeze effectively for the components or the manifests?
Essentially both. It's the date that we cut the RC. RC means that no more features go in. For 1.3 and by extension for manifest.
Okay. We'll come back to that in a second, but yep. So keep moving. Yep.
Okay. So with that said, let's go over the blocking issues for cutting the RC release. Let's start from the docs actually. Any updates there? I'm not sure if Rui is here. I know this is not a friendly meeting in terms of time zone.
Okay, so is Rui here? I'm guessing not. Okay.
I did read the bug today. It seems like it just needs to be rebased, his PR.
Which PR, sorry?
The one on the docs refactor. You're talking about the distributions page, right?
Oh, yep, because this refactor.
So what happened is he went to rebase it, and the CLA bot says you can't do that because a commit doesn't belong to you. So he needs to get an ACK from 8-bit. What's the?
Is it not in his repo? It looks like it's in his repo. Can he just force commit out that commit?
Yeah, he needs a consent from 8-bit MP3, who also added one suggestion there.
Thank you. That's what I meant to say.
Well, okay,
It's just a rebase. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, he can just fix that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it'll just be like tomorrow or something.
Anyway, so that's all going on. We don't need to go super detailed with this. So, what next thing?
Okay. Anything else on the doc side? I believe the blocking issue from last time has continued. I saw it on the PR, I think, on the issue. Yes, great.
Is there going to be release notes for 1.3? We talked about this last week. There's a roadmap, but that's not the same as release notes, you know? So.
I know that we have a lot of blog posts that Josh has been helping with. And I imagine that a lot of things that are written in the blog posts are also part of the release notes. So maybe we can leverage the work already done there.
And I don't think it's a blocking issue, but there was some discussion last week about adding Google Analytics. It's just, just to highlight that. So obviously, if someone could get that moving, that'd be good. But
on the release notes, I don't believe that we've ever delivered release notes on a release.
I think the release tags on the Kubeflow repo sometimes used to, but yeah.
So I don't know that that's been historical delivery.
I think usually we did blog posts, right, Josh?
Oh no, there was a change log. No, there actually was a change log, but it just hasn't been updated since like 0.8 or something.
Yeah, check this out. This is what.
So those are two different things, though, right? Release notes and change logs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying that they're both describing new things, so it's a start there. We have already done some work there.
Cool. And the manifest refactor, is that coming along nicely?
Actually, let me comment on the last thing. The last bullet doesn't seem like a blocking issue, right?
Yep.
Neither.
Cool, let's get rid of it.
Yeah, the release notes, I don't think. is a delivery.
No, I think we should definitely block the release on having some notes about what's in the release. We're talking about the analytics, right? You can't release
Okay.
something without telling people what's in it.
Well, I'm saying I looked on I looked on GitHub, and there are no release notes. It's always a change log, as far as I
Well,
can
that's fine. Whatever we call them.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty similar, but effectively just something that someone can look at to see, for at very least linking to each component's changelog or whatever it happens to be, right? Just if that's the blog post, that's fine. We can just say that that's the blog post. Just it's fine. But then we should put a link to the blog post on the kubeflow.org.
Yeah, I think the terminology matters, and I think that we do need to define this explicitly. And I don't think release note is the right term. I think we will have a blog post, and it's TBD on changelog. I like the changelog idea, but I think we should discuss it. And whether the changelog is like an Uber changelog for everything, or is it by working group?
Yep. I think
So yeah, I agree with Josh, and also let's just do what we have already done. No need to change anything last minute. I think there is already a lot of work being done on blog posts for letting people know what is new, what we have, how to use it. So no reason to block on this one. I mean, as you said, Matthew, we already have a way to tell people what has changed.
cool. Yep. So the manifest one, I think we'll talk more about this in a second because I've got some serious questions about how the distributions are going to map onto them. So let's just keep distribution talk out of it for a second. But for the other parts, how is the manifest refactor coming along?
Okay, let me go through this. So for the manifest refactor, I'm currently in the process of defining the Istio manifests. They're almost ready. I have bumped into actually I have bumped into a customized shortcoming that I'm trying to work around at the moment. I have an issue upstream and the PR as well. You can check the meeting notes for the manifest working group for more details. We had the meeting today. And for the manifest side, I'm hoping that we can have Istio this week so that we can move forward with the instructions to install everything with customizing kubectl, as we said in the charter.
So where are these instructions going to be hosted?
That's a good question. The first place would be the manifest repo, the first place that they will be hosted.
Okay, we'll come back to that because I think that's getting into the distribution territory. So, so in terms of, are the various components ready with their upstream manifests? Because if you say you're going to stop them putting new manifests in after 1.3, in the current state, it doesn't look like any of them really are ready. So, like a lot of them.
I missed. What's the question?
So in the case of the Kubeflow manifest repo in its current form, if we go to manifests, I'm sorry for detracting this manifest, but if we look in the apps folder, which is what supposedly all these distributions will be based off, a lot of these aren't, they're kind of formatted strangely, or they're not actually mirrors of the upstream, or they don't exist upstream. So, like Admission Webhook, I don't know if it exists upstream, and a bunch of other ones.
It exists upstream. I made the PR. Everything exists upstream. The only PRs that aren't merged yet are KF serving, which may be merged now, I'm not sure. And pipelines, which also may be merged now, I'm not sure. But this has been the work.
So maybe it's the Kubeflow notebooks repo one. No, so the Kubeflow repo, which is specifically problematic because it's not under the same folder structure as every other repo.
In Kubeflow, every component of Kubeflow is already merged. Every PR related to manifest. So
Okay,
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, all I'm trying to say is that right now, I don't know.
If you're trying to find out the mapping, you can go to our issues that we keep in the manifest repo. And then you will find, and from the umbrella issue, you will find the issue for step 2, which we are defining every week in our manifest meeting. And there you will find the mapping between the upstream structure and the between the manifest structure and the upstream structure.
So my question is, should this folder be structured by working group?
We have declared this structure since the beginning of the working group, so I wouldn't expect any last minute changes now.
So what is the structure here? Like, so why is this one called Jupyter, but the other ones don't have a folder like that?
So I would suggest to go over the issue we have already written for the manifest working group, and then, continuing the discussion there.
All I'm saying is that I think there is some inconsistencies in the structure which will cause problems for distributions. That's all I'm saying right now.
And that's, if that's true, then great. I would suggest, I don't think that it holds, but we can continue the discussion as part of the working group, of the manifest working group in the issue or in Slack or in our next meetings.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So
can I have a quick question to Yanis here? Yep. Thank you so much for doing this. So just a quick question. So we're not planning to organize the whole working group to have the same design for 1.3, right? But what about the images? Like, do we need to release the images, and how do we want to have the same structure between Kubeflow-manifest and Kubeflow-working group repository? For example, if we need to change something in the manifest as well.
There were two questions. There were, sorry, Matthew, do you want to take this?
No, I'm saying, what was your question? I'm confused by your question as well, yeah.
No, I mean, Yanis, did you? Okay, so the first question is about the images version. So how we will keep the version of the images? Because right now, the structure in upstream is different, like from the repo itself, right? So what is the process of updating the manifest right now before 1.3, if we need to do some updates?
Okay, so right now the manifests are in your repository, right? They are
Yes.
in Katib.
Yes, right.
So exactly. So in the manifests in Kubeflow manifests are simply a copy of what you have in your repo. Katib is the upstream for the Katib manifest. Katib is the source of truth for the Katib manifest. So if Katib needs to make changes to their manifest, they just make it in their own repository, and then the manifest syncs up.
But I mean, we should do it manually right now, right? Just create the PR on the manifest repository right now to sync up the folders.
Oh, I think they'll do that just for the 1.3 release, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yes, I'm going to take care of that, and also for the 1.3 release, syncing everything up so it's up to date with whatever each component has decided as their desired version.
Because I think the point of manifests, Kubeflow manifest, has changed. If you correct me if I'm wrong, Yanis, it's that now it's just effectively a repo which contains all of the upstream manifests for each of the components and has nothing else in it effectively, and it's versioned by the versions that we define of 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and that's when they update, not in between those times.
Yes, that's very accurate. There is a small asterisk that it has some other manifests for some common applications, some for distributions which are going to be phased out in later releases, and some for contributed manifests, which are not maintained by any working group, but have been contributed by community members and are living under the contrib folder. You can find more information about this in our issues. We have discussed this some time ago, I think. It was the first thing we did actually in the manifest working group.
Okay. Have we got anything more on the manifest? We will talk about that distribution stuff in a second because I think that's important to go through. But let's talk about that in the main agenda.
Should I? Okay, then I should go on with the update for the release. So let's continue with the notebooks working group. The last week I remember there was some talk about the CI/CD migration, and how that caused some issues. I think that's solved because I actually had some of my PRs merged last week for Manifest. So that's a great step forward. Any blocking issues?
So there's one that Yao, I messaged you, or I made an issue that was so to make sure that we release the notebook server images, we need someone to provision them in ECR, the public ECR repo. So I've made a list of them. And also I think we should, just like KF Serving has done, instead of putting our notebook images at the root of the ECR, we should probably put them under a folder called notebook so that it's obvious that like admission controller is actually related to the notebooks working group, just like KF Serving has done. Right now they're under here. Anyway, this is not relevant. The point is, all we need really is someone else just to confirm to Patrick, because he wants someone else to confirm that we want to do that, and I think we should do this before the release so that we don't have to make this change later. And then secondarily,
if I make comment, I saw a comment that there needed to be some more syncing between the leads of the notebooks working group. So is this something that needs to be discussed first before it happens?
Well, it's more like we've kind of committed to having Visual Studio Code and RStudio in, and we've got the proposal here that it's here for how we're planning to do that, and we've got everything ready to do it. It's the only thing blocking this getting in is the creation of the ECR image places to host the images, and then we will be able to support that for 1.3. It'll be there.
So does it make sense to wait for an okay from the other?
Yeah, I just need one okay from someone else, really. Just like.
Okay, because I got the impression that there needs to that some syncing up, some synchronization between inside the working group needs to happen there. So yeah, let's wait until one more person.
If Kimonos can just go, yep. Then so really, if we can easily get this into 1.3. If someone, we can do it if Kimonos says yes, or we can do it if Patrick is not the right word. Yao says, yep, I'll make those image repos. So Yao, are you here, Yao?
Hi, this is Yao here. So I totally understand the working group notebooks point about this proposal, but I want to emphasize something, which is we should avoid back and forth efforts and try to make a decision as a whole team, like a whole working group, before we come into the dirty engineering work. Yeah, I think that would also help someone like me to move forward with the proposal. Like you have proposed the solution, but it would be great to have working group notebook make the decision as a whole team. And then I can say, yeah, there's no blocker on my side, on AWS side. We can move forward very quickly. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping would happen, that, Kimonos or, Kimonos would pretty much come on here and say, yep, that makes sense, let's do that. Because otherwise, if we do it later, then we're going to have to make links to these old images and stuff like that. Because if we release 1.3 with the old image names, it will break, obviously, if we rename it.
I think as the release manager, at least, I think it's important that a working group is in sync about what happens, even if that ends up delaying something a little bit. So I think it's very important to get in sync first and solve this issue for the notebooks working group, and then continue.
Yep, and obviously you are a member and lead of the notebook working group, so
of course, I'm talking as the
if you're
release
willing to work with
now.
us to get this in, I'm more than happy to have a quick chat after, and we'll see if this is the right way to do it, and we'll agree on it or not agree on it, and then we can get Yao to make the change. Yeah, is that good?
So my response is, let's discuss as part of the notebooks working group, and then let's come
Yep.
back
So yeah,
with
you
a
and me.
unified
So what I'm saying
response.
is, you and me will meet after this meeting and make a decision so that we can actually release 1.3. Right? Yep.
No, we're not going to meet after this meeting. We're
Yeah,
going
you have to have
to meet
consensus
with
as
other working
There's like
groups, with
5
other
leads currently in the notebooks working group, and most of them are not active. So it's not that easy to actually get consensus, whatever that means.
I don't think that's true, and I think that it's
Yeah,
it's better to have a
if Kimonos
conversation where everyone is
here, you
included.
can't meet privately afterwards and make a decision for the entire project.
Well, no, I mean, Kimonos can obviously be involved as well. I'm not saying that he's not going to be there. What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
like, we'll organize a meeting and we'll get this in, because we really need to get this in the next day or two. Otherwise, 1.3 will have to be blocked to some extent.
I agree that Kimono should also be there. So, as you said, let's have it tomorrow because it's very late.
Yeah. I don't know the
couldn't
time
make this
zones and
meeting.
stuff. That's the bigger issue. Anyway, so sorry about that, everyone else. Let's move on to the next piece, because that is important for 1.3. But
Yes.
is there a
So
discussion here?
should I finish the release part first?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Great. So let's continue with KFP. I see. So from the KFP side, Yuan, or anyone
Yeah.
else from the KFP side, any updates on blocking issues?
So the PR for moving manifest to upstream has just been merged a few minutes ago, and that's a great movement. After that, I think the two major remaining issues we want to tackle before KF 1.3 are upgrading Argo to the latest, the version, and also switching to PNS executor as default, so that it will be not blocking for latest Kubernetes versions, which no longer have Docker there.
Quick question about that. If you're going to upgrade Argo, can you use that to also factor it into an overlay so that it can be installed?
Yeah, we've already did that. We moved third-party manifests into a specific folder called third-party, so that downstream consumers can compose them if you want to bring your own Argo.
Awesome.
That's a great addition. Thanks a lot, Yuan. And so, Yuan, how do you feel about these deliverables? Do you feel confident that everything will be ready until the 15th?
Yes, both of them are code complete, and we were just waiting for the moving manifest upstream PR to merge.
That sounds great. So let's move forward with the other work groups that are not mentioned here, but I will mention them in case they have something in their mind. So the serving working group, any blocking issues for the 1.3 release?
Guess not. Is anyone here from the serving working group? I'm going to guess no.
Okay. Then let's continue to the deployments working group. Anyone here from the deployments working group have any blocking issues for the release?
I think we can probably move on to the next section, Yanis. If anyone wants to raise their hand right now and say that they have an issue, let's just move on.
Let me go quickly through the remaining two. So
there are other
training.
Right?
No, it's training and Katib and AutoML. So for training and AutoML, are there any blocking issues for the 1.3 release?
I think it should be ready to go. We have a meeting tomorrow. I will ask about the training working group specifically about the blocking issue. But I think since we merged everything to upstream, we will not have any problems. So it should be fine.
Are your manifests ready?
Sorry?
Are your manifests ready as well? That's a separate question right now.
Yes, because regarding the manifest, I think we will create another overlay for the images, because my first question was, to be honest, about the images version, how we'll keep the latest image and the image for the 1.3 release. And I think overlay can help us, right? To just create the overlay for the latest image and overlay for the Kubeflow image.
I wasn't sure exactly what you meant, Andre. Yes, overlay can help if I understand the problem correctly. But to be in sync about the technical issues, let's continue the discussion in Slack.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
Maybe in the OTML channel. Yeah, to be exactly sure on what you mean technically.
Yep, sure. Thank you.
That sounds great. So, finally, for the release health, I would say it's an orange. I would expect that we hit the target just in time. And yeah, we'll take it from here next community meeting. Finally, it's the social media part. Do we have any updates there? I remember there were a lot of discussions and a lot of ideas. Do we have anything new?
Josh, do you have any updates there about that?
Yeah, we have 4 blog posts, and I think all of them have been formulated and are going through some form of some level of approval. So I feel pretty good that the blog posts are going to be available. The 4 that we have are the user survey, the Kubeflow 1.3 overview, the AutoML, and the KF serving. Those are the ones that we have right now.
Cool. Awesome. Now, is there anything else you want to add about the release, Yanis?
Oh, I think that's all. If I have, in general, if I have to add anything and it's not already in the structure, then you have to amend the structure. So no. The structure is great. I'm done with the release.
Cool. So let's try and move on to the main agenda. So I think the most pressing issue for the community, or a lot of people, is the Slack invite, because there's a lot of people complaining about the Slack invite not working. So we have solved it in a sense, but we need someone to actually approve a pull request to update the invite because it was dead. So is Igor here?
Yes, that's right. I have updated the link, and if somebody can do a quick LGTM and approve, that would be great. It's in the community website repo. It's in the website repo.
I think Animesh can do it. Jeff can do it. Anyone with root approvers on the website can do it.
I can do a quick review and approve it. Thank you for updating that.
Cool.
Yeah, that would be great. And I can provide context about this thing. So I'll put this on my calendar to create this link every like 25 days, because unfortunately it expires and there is no way to make it longer. That's just a limitation of Slack. And other than that, all other solutions are a little bit more complicated. Having said that, you guys know that everybody can invite additional members just through direct invite to their email. You know that, right? That's pretty easy. Any member in Slack can invite other people. But of course, we want to have a link posted as well, so that people can self-invite themselves, right? And this is the link that I'm talking about, and it expires every 30 days.
Are you sure? I'm confident that you can make the link expire never. It's just that there's a 2,000 person limit on each link. Like, there's a setting when you create the link which says additional settings. You click that, and then it says expiry time, and then you can click never. But it defaults to 30 days. You are correct.
Maybe you know that something that I don't know, but you are welcome to try. I made
you can just go to your link. So just go to your Slack, because you only can create one invite link per person. So if you just go to your Slack, go to settings, go invite, and then click get sharing link, and then click additional settings. You can then click expiry never, and then hit save, and then that link that you created will never expire.
That'll be great. Let's try to do that. I'll maybe just invite you for Zoom so we can do it together.
Oh, you can just do it right now. You can it's just click on your invite section, how you made the invite, where you generated the link, and then just go to, and you'll be able to see it there. It's easy. And then we can just get, and then it doesn't change the link URL, so you can still approve that PR. Yeah.
Okay, let's try. Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't see it there. I mean, definitely.
It's pretty weirdly formatted. Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Hopefully it's possible. Yeah. Although I know that this is not the first time this is happening. This is how I inherited from Jeremy, this whole thing. Yeah.
So there is a 2,000 person limit. So I think the long-term approach needs to be what Kubernetes does, right? With a bot to invite.
Right. Yeah. That would be good. If somebody can host it on our infrastructure, let's talk about that. Yeah. We have infrastructure, but it's kind of tightly managed and it's difficult to make changes there.
Yeah, if someone's willing to contribute that once 1.3 is out, that'd be awesome. Anyway, let's move on. There's one thing I wanted to highlight. You want to add anything, Igor, before we move on? Or?
Well, that's about it. That's where we are. So yeah, let's connect after this meeting with you, and hopefully we will fix it permanently.
Well, until 2,000 people join, but yeah, because that happens
Yeah.
regardless. But
All
we're
right.
only 6,000 total, so hopefully that's not a huge deal.
Cool.
Okay, so the one thing I just wanted to, I completely forgot about the fact that this exists, and it's really useful if you weren't aware of it. If you're a member, you can access through the Kubernetes PR dashboard, you can see things that are assigned to you for Kubeflow. And so the Prowlbot, if someone assigns things to you, this is a much easier way to find what you're meant to be looking at than trying to look through the GitHub notifications sometimes. Anyway, just a side thing if anyone wants to look at that. Cool. Now, the part, Yanis, I wanted to talk about before is that it seems like, as you were saying, all of the current KDF files will no longer work. And since that is the way most people are installing Kubeflow, that means currently there is no way to install Kubeflow that is ready for 1.3.
The reason that KFT files no longer work is because you have changed the paths of the customizations. And it's expected that KFDF files may break from one release to another. Especially in the future, as you imagine, where distributions will live outside of Kubeflow, and it won't be reasonable to block Kubeflow PRs on outside things. Now, the plan for this, as we have mentioned in the manifest working group, is to allow time for distributions to make these changes and test after we cut the RC release. So we have already accounted for that. And that is the time after the release, AKA the feature freeze, begins. Then distributions can start testing, with the method they desire. So yeah, that's the plan there. If you are asking about the effort to fix these things, then it's a matter of changed paths. It's not.
Or it's a little bit more than that, but yeah, it's more like what I'm asking is the question here specifically is should the distributions. So effectively, we're saying each KDF is a distribution. Maybe since they're going to have to rewrite them anyway, maybe we should say, let's not update it anymore in the distributions folder. Let's push it onto another repo, That's since they're going to have to rewrite it anyway.
And so my answer to that would be to stick to the plan that we've had since the beginning. And that is to not try to do too many things at once. And for this release, keep things inside the manifest repo. And in the next release, start tackling the next thing. So for this, I would say let's stick to the plan and do what we said we would do from the beginning.
So because how are we going to encourage people to okay, coming back around to distributions in a second, but I think the question is about distributions. How are they actually going to be managed? With 1.3, what is your expectation? If you said that it's already been planned, so how do you expect a user to install a distribution? That's what I'm asking.
What the Kubeflow manifest working group will provide is instructions to install the various Kubeflow components using customizing kubectl. After that, a distribution can use their own tools like kfcutl or whatever, and use that interface, which is effectively customized, to assemble their own Kubeflow distributions. So,
what I'm saying though is is there a reason to keep them in the same repo, right? That's what I'm saying at this point. Because like it's
Yes,
not.
yes. The reason is to not try and make too many changes at once. And that we for the 1.3 release, we have already discussed in issues, and we have said to the distribution owners that everyone is in sync. We know that in future releases, distribution should live outside of Kubeflow, but for the 1.3 release, it's okay to live here and tackle this in later releases. So so making this change right now would actually be breaking our promise that we made from the early start.
Cool. Now, this moves on to the next question for the distributions. I really just want to run through them and ask what their actual intentions are if the people hear from them, just because there is going to be work involved. I just want to confirm that you've looked at it, right, and that you're just going to work, that you are planning to work on it. So very quickly, is anyone here from GCP that can answer that sort of question? If what's your sort of, are you actually planning to use these manifests that are in the manifest repo, or doing something different, or?
Yes, this is Yuan from Google, and our plan is to, after the RC card, we'll start experimenting with the distribution, and I think the major efforts will be around upgrading it still, like everyone has to do, and we plan to keep using the manifest repo, but we'll move the GCP specific files there out to our own repo.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you plan to keep using the kdef files though? That's a separate question.
No, we don't use kdef files.
Okay. So however you guys, quick question, how do you people currently install it with your Anthos distribution?
We use a new tool built by Google called KPD, which is well, maybe you can have a look at it to see if it could be a good alternative.
Cool. And Amazon, is anyone here from there? Are they planning, because your ones right now, if I remember rightly, are just based off the Dex one?
Yeah, so this is Yao. So I think our future plan on distribution might be we will be able to develop our own deployment tool. It might be a patch of Kafka, or might be a variety of customize. It could be, yeah. But I think that's our future plan. But we also rely on the manifest as well. Yeah.
So for 1.3, are you planning on so since someone has to, my question really is that there's a folder now that you guys were depending on, which needs to be updated, and I was wondering if you were planning on updating that Kubernetes stacks folder to support the new structure. Or because like obviously there's no one technically in charge of that folder. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we'll see. Yeah, because I think I don't think this is a technical blocker. Yeah, because it should be feasible and straightforward. And now our manifest working group come to a good state and saying the manifest is ready to go. And I think on the distribution side, not only AWS but also any other cloud providers will be able to tackle that problem easily.
Okay, and so because I'm just highlighting. So in Azure as well. Is anyone from Azure here? Because like Azure and AWS are probably and IBM are probably the closest to the generic distribution, because they're pretty much just that code. So like there may be some. Yeah.
I can add what Agile Stacks is doing. So we have a tool called Hub CLI, and it's open source. And AWS is welcome to take a look at it. We can collaborate with them on that. But it is doing the same thing as Google is doing. It's taking manifests from the manifests folder, and it's running certain overlays on top of it, and then it's running customize, and then it's running kubectl to deploy Kubeflow.
Is this a new thing? Because previously you had kfdef files, right?
No, it's well, yeah, it is relatively new. we used KFDev 2 releases ago, but since then, KFCuddle deprecated some features and we also improved our support for on-prem, and it was not feasible to use KFCuddle for on-prem just because there was additional customization, a lot of additional customization that was required for on-premise deployment. So we kind of like dropped that, and we are using manifests directly, similar to how Google is doing it with Kept, but we are using it with our own tool called Hub CLI.
There, you know that you do have a file from IBM in here called from a KFDev file, right? For 1.2.
Is it a question for me?
Yeah, no, I'm saying so you were supporting it for last release, right? So what I'm saying is, are you going to be making a new one, or what are you going to be doing? That's really what I'm trying to ask here to everyone. Like, these files existed for 1.2, and I'm trying to get an understanding, with the exception of Google. Well, yeah, with the exception of Google. So I'm just wondering if the distributions are intending to make new files here, or they're planning to do something completely different.
So we are planning to do it in a separate repo, but it would be good to have a place where people can find these repos, because currently they kind of all exist in different locations and users are not aware of them.
Yeah, that is a big problem that we need to. I think when the docs refactor that we talked about with the distributions, that's obviously where they're intended to find them, obviously, for now, right? Can someone correct me?
Yeah, I think it's a good plan. Yeah, totally. I mean, that should be like a landing page for a distribution, and from there it will take the user on a path that is specific to that distribution.
Yep, makes sense.
That sounds like a good orthogonal issue to document and explore. Agreed as well.
And I think potentially that leads itself in the future towards the eventual sort of Kubernetes-like thing where we don't host their docs for them, but instead we just have a link to the partner page. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? Sorry for going through this kind of painfully, and so I mean, and for the other people, we won't go through them right now, but like there are a few other distributions as well. So I guess what we maybe come out of this is exactly what Yanis just said, is that just make sure that your docs, once that distribution refactor happens, correctly point to how users should install, because I think most are currently going to be looking for the KFDev files that they were previously looking for, you know? So if we want to...
And from the manifest working group, we will provide instructions using on how to use Kustomize to build manifests and essentially achieve the same functionality as KFCTL does right now, but only Kustomize, nothing else.
Cool. And so I guess the action there is just for each of these distributions, obviously, just make sure that once that merge happens with the distributions, just to make sure that someone can find out how to install your distribution from there, you know, and then we can maybe put a link on the getting started page to each of the distributions.
I think many when you're talking about distributions, I think many of these distributions have a page in the Kubeflow docs right now.
No, they all have one, but most of them are not describing, they currently point to using these KFDev files, even if that's not their current method of installing them. Or at least the getting started says.
So you're saying the docs should be updated as well. Agreed.
Well, they have to be, obviously, right? Yeah, this is the biggest issue that we're going to face otherwise.
Agreed.
Cool. Now, I mean, if we just do want to, if we've obviously had updates from each of the working group leads, so let's just avoid that for now. So Canonical wanted to, unless anyone has anything they really just want to raise that isn't a blocking issue, but just something you want to share, we won't go through you all, just, you know, if anyone's got anything on their mind.
I just want to highlight that for KDP we will support 1.19 of Kubernetes in this release, because before that we had some problems.
Okay. Ktuv will support K8s 1.19.
Yes.
That's good. Anything else anyone wants to share? Just cool things, interesting things that are here? AutoML deployments, manifests, notebooks, pipelines, serving. Nope. Okay, so Canonical added an idea here. So does someone want to present that?
Yeah. Hey, this is Kenneth Koski from Canonical. And just as some background, as far as I'm aware, there's not really a plan for an overall version number for Kubeflow after 1.3. And it's going to be up to each distribution to version it themselves. And we had some ideas about versioning, and we were wondering what the community thought of them and if there would be any interest in syncing up on something like this.
Can we just clarify, Yanis, if that is the plan? I thought the manifests were going to be still, whenever a release version gets defined, like say 1.4, the same process would take place where the manifest repo gets, so we do a date where we say no more changes, and then on that date we do a pull request from all the upstream repos into that apps folder, and then the distributions make a release around those manifests. Was that not the plan?
Yeah, no. You have got the procedure right. It's what I have in mind as well.
So I guess Canonical, that makes sense. Not Canonical, obviously, Kenneth. Your proposal is more about when we should do these versions, right? Is that kind of it?
Yeah. So I guess the meat of the proposal is targeting more frequent, smaller, more frequent releases, and have hard deadlines such that the advantage of the smaller, more frequent releases would be that if you have some feature that misses a release and slips, it is not too painful to just bump it back to the next one. That will let us be much more rigid on having a release cycle.
I mean, if we agree to what we not originally, but like what the original kind of consensus has been is that 3 months, 4 months, right? These sort of that time frame for a new point version release. Because like I think the issue is going to become that if we want to give time to the partners for the distributions to be ready, like it might not all distributions are going to be in the same sort of like ability to move quickly, right? Especially if they're very decoupled from the manifests or something like that. So I'm trying to figure out how we can ensure that distributions actually continue to exist.
Yeah, and that was the thought process behind what's termed extended support releases there. So if there's some distribution that doesn't want to keep up quite as quickly, you could stick with a much slower release cadence. But if you are interested in keeping up with the latest and greatest, there's a very rigid schedule for keeping up with that.
Well, that makes sense. Like that's a really good idea, you know, and maybe we call those, if we're just going to stay with the same structure, we could change it, but we could go like like the next release could be next month and it could be 1.3.1 or something, you know?
Sure.
And it's just whatever was on that day, but it may not be the problem really is that like the platform is kind of not super cohesive right now. So making it work together could be quite difficult on that day. Like we all agree that we try and make it work together on 1.3, 1.4, but like who knows if the manifests would be in a state where they could be combined together into a platform that actually works, like for the central dashboard talking to it and for the, you know, whatnot.
Does it make sense to open a proposal for this so that everyone from every working group can chime in and say what they think?
Yeah, definitely. We just wanted to propose this and get some initial feedback, and it sounds like there's at least some interest, so we can definitely open up a proposal.
And I would love it. Sorry, George.
I was going to say Kubeflow has never done an extended release yet, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's not releases aren't like, it's not quite the same as like a traditional release because it's kind of a point in time. We try and make it work. All the various components work together on that point in time. That's kind of what I see the releases as.
Yeah. It's just the extended time of support, you know, if you're looking at the calendar.
Yeah. So the support concept, we don't have any support concept right now, as far as I can tell. So.
Yeah. I think this is a question more about resources. In practice, release means somebody has to build images, somebody has to apply tags, somebody has to write a blog. And if you want to do it more frequently, I'm not sure there is appetite or resources for that. Releases don't happen on their own, right? Images need to be built and tagged and tested.
Well, those
So
images should be managed by the upstream components, right? And if they're releasing their component version on their own cadence, with the exception of maybe Central Dashboard, which is kind of used by everyone in profiles and whatnot, they can release their own versions independently, and Pipelines does, right?
Yeah. The idea here was like if some service doesn't release very often, it would stay the same between individual versions in this chart, and once they release an update, they would get included.
Very similar to Ubuntu, I guess, really, like the packages and whatnot.
Yep.
I
Ken,
think
when you file this issue as a proposal, can you put in there kind of that hello world example of, let's say that component A is.
Yeah, exactly. The problem and the solution, kind of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I really like the proposal. I mean, if the proposal is to kind of treat it very similar to how Ubuntu releases, because it's a very similar problem, I think. If we do truly modularize the components to be independent in some sense, but then come together in distributions.
By the way, my first question on the issue will probably be if Kubernetes does the same, and if not, why? So,
well, they have
just something to think about.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
there's a lot of moving parts, and there is in Kubeflow as well. So this is going to be the biggest thing against that's going to stop it, right? But hopefully,
with Kubernetes, there was an entire working group formed to figure out LTS.
Right. In Kubernetes, there's also there's also a certification process where you need to run compliance tests to basically verify that the distribution continues to comply with the API and the compatibility tests. And again, to reduce the burden on distributions, it's done every 3 months or every 6 months, depending on what cadence these distributions want to go with.
Definitely something to think about as well. Okay,
file it so we can ask questions.
Yeah,
exactly.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think the consensus is that it's a good idea, because obviously we want to have more regular releases and we want to have support for longer than just no support. So it makes total sense. If we can find a way to make it logistically work without a central company contributing lots of resources like Canonical does, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of going to be the big thing, right?
Cool. Yeah, I will open up a proposal.
Awesome.
I don't know why they didn't just call those LTS. That's
I actually started with LTS, and then someone got confused because the support cycle wasn't 5 years for the LTS releases.
Oh, okay. That totally makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for clearing that up.
And so there isn't much time left, but I just wanted to highlight one proposal because it's one that I think we just want to keep touch on every week, is the proposal to form the technical steering committee, which obviously Google agreed to do in the formation of the governance structure of Kubeflow. So I do think the community expects them to do this at some point in the near future. So just is there anyone from Google here who's on the current project steering group who can say if there's been any discussions behind the scenes about this? Is anyone from Google there? Oh yeah.
This is Yuan from Google, and Tia has replied to the issue. I think that's our current reply.
Okay. So like, I think what the community wants is kind of like, if you're saying that for whatever reason you're not going to undertake the roadmap right now, I really think the community is going to want to know why, and if not now, then when and what conditions have to be met for it to take place. Obviously, I can respond to Thea in here as well and whatnot, but I'm trying to avoid doing this stuff until after 1.3, but because it's just a lot, it's going to take a lot of back and forth, but I just want to make sure that there is some discussion so that like we agree on the terms of when the handover happens to the elected leadership of Kubeflow rather than just Google being at the project steering group.
So I wonder which exact issues you would like the technical steering committee to solve.
Oh no,
Because
what I want them to solve is I want the leadership of Kubeflow to be diverse and elected. That's the problem they're solving. They're not solving, there's no specific problem they need. Like Kubeflow definitely needs some work, but that's, you know, whatever. The point that they're initially agreed to in the governance document, which was agreed to by Google, says that the goal of the project steering group is to establish the technical steering committee. Like it is an interim.
So I think right now we are setting up the some processes to allow making some decisions distributed like blogs or Twitter tweets, and I think that's a step forward. And I cannot. I think that I'll tell this information, this request to other project steering group members, and we'll have a reply. But I think the current reply is what Dia has provided, and we're working on some issues first to get the process started, and we'll probably think about that after this.
So,
Yeah,
so Matthew, this is Jeremy. I haven't read the proposal, the governance in a long time, but it's not clear to me that the proposal ever made a firm commitment to how exactly the TSC would be formed. I think that,
that was the responsibility of the project steering group to make that decision of how it would be formed.
Right.
But it was clear that it had to be formed in a particular way with some requirements, specifically that it was a neutral governance structure.
Well, so it says neutral?
Well, not neutral so much as diversified. Smoothly transition project to a technical steering committee with a diversified leadership via a transparent process.
Okay.
That's a goal of the project steering group.
Sure. It doesn't. So I think that's right. I think the only thing I wanted to sort of clarify is I think you said that the TSC would be elected, and I don't see that in the proposal. So it doesn't seem like that is something that has been firmly agreed upon yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it may not be an election based. I think there was some election wording for some of the other things, like the working groups were meant to be elected leadership for them. I think there was some comment on that somewhere.
Hey, Matthew, remember last week, Taya committed in the PSG folder on GitHub the roadmap of stuff that needs to happen.
Did she?
Yeah, it's that umbrella thing. That's what I've been working on.
Oh, this thing, yeah, sorry, this thing, yeah.
Twitter guidelines, blog guidelines, all that stuff.
But still, this is good, but it's not
for us to work on.
Yeah, the key point I'm trying to highlight here is not that you're not contributing awesome stuff. That's good, Google. I mean, but what I'm asking for is the request around, what is your plan to form the TSC? I mean, what it looks like is, up to you. That's the point. But it's obviously with some small limitations, like it has to be diverse and transparent. But beyond that, like, I'm excited to hear what you guys propose, and I'd like to see that happen as soon as we can practically do it. That's kind of the thought, because we've been waiting, a couple years almost for that. Oh, hello.
Yeah, so I guess some ways to help make us have a better expectation is, for example, to think about what decisions should TSC make, because just having a TSC with its name is not useful, and so I think a better scope of what's the role of TSC would help keep moving the discussion forward.
Well, I think that's kind of your responsibility, right?
Yeah, but we do not just make the decision. We also want to hear I think you are requesting a TSC, and so what does it do? What do you want it to do? And we are right now lacking some of that feedback. And yeah, I think just these are just some questions that that I don't know yet.
Well, pretty much exactly what the PSG and previously technical advisory council did. What in my mind, the technical steering committee will take over all responsibilities of what the project steering group does, because it says very clearly here, that it will be disbanded once the creation of the technical steering committee happens. The project steering group, that is. Anyway, so what I'm trying to ask for is just, I'd love from my mind, just the one sentence is that the technical steering committee will be responsible for defining the governance structure of Kubeflow. Like that's the one-liner, and they'll be empowered to make decisions that define the governance structure of Kubeflow. That's my thought process on what they are, but obviously there is other aspects to their role as well, like technical escalations, as is described in this document. Like, project graduation, how do you take something from wanting to be part of Kubeflow to being part of Kubeflow? How do you define what a distribution is? How do you define working groups, creation, charter approval, and dissolution? These sort of things. That's what it says here would be in the TSC requirements, because it says it's a responsibility of the PSG. So assumedly the project steering group will be handing over all of its responsibilities to the technical steering committee.
I'm not sure that was the understanding. That may be your understanding, but I don't believe that was the understanding of the proposal. But you can talk to Taya to understand more.
So
but I don't.
Who would be responsible for these other actions then when the project steering group disbands?
You should talk to Taya.
Okay.
But I think the
cool.
technical steering committee was mostly just technical.
Okay. I mean, you can, obviously if there's another governance structure that needs to exist, that makes sense. But, like, obviously someone does need to do those things that we described here. Like, agree on who's actually allowed to be a working group, make sure that that's run properly. These sort of questions do need to be run by someone. So, yeah, it's my thought process.
Is there a reason why the working groups can't sort of self-govern themselves?
Well, because someone needs to empower them to do that, right? So at some point, some working group, might have problems or disagreements internally, and someone needs to be able to resolve that.
I think the working group should resolve it themselves.
But okay, so then why is this saying here that they should be responsible for the creation, charter approval, and dissolution of working groups?
So that's just, I think that's primarily, I think those are not the same responsibilities as resolving conflicts within the working groups, right? So yes, somebody needs to approve new working groups, which is the PSG right now. But in terms of escalations, I think we would like to have fewer escalations, right? Mm-hmm. Up to the TSC. And I think, to Yang's point, right? If, do we have examples of escalations that we would need some committee to resolve? I think to your point, if we've operated this long without a TSC, then that suggests that we don't really need a TSC because we don't have that many escalations to deal with. And so I think we can, as always was the intent of the proposal, we wanted to push as much decision-making down to the working groups. And so like, I don't really think we ever intended for like the TSCs to sort of like be overruling the working groups or even the different area code owners. So I think my answer to you is like, ideally, if working groups are having conflicts within themselves, like, what should the notebook release be? Like, ideally that's resolved by the notebook working group.
So I think I forget where it explicitly is stated, but I believe, or at least it seems like an obvious statement that all working groups should also be diverse, right? So there are working groups right now which are majority one company. Notebooks is one of them, same as I think there are some other ones that are like definitely a bit imbalanced with the structure. So it may cause problems if things come to votes and effectively they vote out the community goal because of some company's objective. Anyway, what I'm trying to say, I'm not saying that's happening. What I'm saying is that like this will happen if the current leader, if there's not someone saying there has to be some restrictions on the number of people from each company that can be leads in each working group, or just something like, just basic governance rules for the full of Kubeflow. If Kubeflow is one project, then we need a governance, right? If Kubeflow is multiple projects, then Kubeflow is not Kubeflow.
I do second Jeremy's comment, two of them. One, that at least the way that I consumed this was that things were to be pushed down as much as possible to the working groups. And I also second Jeremy's comment that, we haven't really needed to escalate a lot of things. And the ones that are tactically being taken care of now have been the ones that have been somewhat painful, but not major structural in a lot of ways. So I do believe that this should work its way out, but I do think that we have been operating successfully. And I think that's proven in the way the community has grown and the number of people that have gone into production. I mean, we're up, 250% from year over year on the number of people that have gone into production. And I think that's really showing that the community is delivering. Are there bumps?
I'm not,
but
these are
we
true
spent
statements.
a lot of time on this particular topic, and I think we need to kind of time box this this discussion a bit, just because there's other things that we need to get done.
Absolutely, but I think.
Well,
I think
to that point, exactly. Maybe we should just have more specific examples when the needs of particular contributors or users are not addressed properly, because that's the main thing. Kubeflow is the basically community of contributors, a community of users. So we need to look at what needs are not addressed and go from there.
So anyway, the only thing that I think I would hope that the rest of the community would agree on. I agree 100%. We're doing amazing things, and that's awesome for Kubeflow. But I think aside from that, there is just this inherent danger with the project right now because of the lack of diversity in the governance of Kubeflow. And that's not a slight to Google. They've obviously contributed almost everything that is Kubeflow. But I'm saying, I think in the same way that Kubernetes, evolved and became a project that was run by the community, so does Kubeflow need to.
So I think that is a proposal and one potential position that people could have. I think other people probably may not have that position, Matthew. And I think that the operating process really has worked. So, maybe there's some way we can bring this to.
Well, my proposal is this to some extent. What's already proposed.
So I just want to, I will say, Matthew, I do think, as far as I can tell, the leadership of Kubeflow is very diverse. It's just diverse across working groups, perhaps not within working groups, but I think, that reflects, the working group leadership reflects who was actually involved in the projects. And I think we decided, one of the core principles when we were forming the working groups is we wanted people to have skin in the game. And so if the, we didn't want to sort of just have working group leads there for diversity if those working group leads weren't invested in the project. And so, at least from my perspective, I felt pretty comfortable with, turning over working group leads to people that were deeply invested in the project, even if they weren't sort of spanning multiple companies.
So that's not what I'm arguing here. No. So don't forget that I'm happy that the working groups are established. That's good. What I'm more saying is that if Kubeflow is to be a community project, it needs to be community governed. That is what I'm saying. And that's what this proposal said, right? That's literally what this proposal in 2018 was talking about. And everyone agreed to it, right? Like this is talking about the concept that, Kubeflow would be, to some extent, handed over to this other entity, technical steering committee, whatever it's called. You can call it whatever you want, and it can have responsibilities, whatever you want. But the point of it would be that, there is just some diversity at the top level.
Here's what I think we ought to do on this potentially is we should have the working groups weigh in to feel like if they have a problem with the current structure, or whether we can allow this to continue at the process that's been developed and been working. Yes, we need to continue to refine. I understand your desire to make a change faster, Matthew, but I think that what my gut feel from being in this for 3 years now, Google did deliver on what they said they wanted to do, which was the working groups were going to be where the decisions were made.
No technical
And
decisions.
I
There is a
think that's
separate
primarily what's
governance
been
decision.
happening up until this point. I don't see where any of the working groups are saying, hey, I need to go to the TSC because I've got some problem I can't solve on my own.
Okay, so that's not what I'm even talking about. Absolutely. It's very clear in this document that the working groups are technically responsible for their components. That is not what I'm proposing to change.
So-
what I'm saying is that there is a governance piece to any big project. And right now, that has
But I
been
think
largely
that
absent.
right now, Matthew, you continue to take the community onto this topic, and I don't believe that the working group leads who
Okay,
we've
then
all-
let's vote. Okay, let's vote. Let's vote. Let's seriously, let's get all the working groups together and let's vote on whether this should continue. Okay? I think that then I will shut up about it if the community decides, as represented by the contributors, like the working groups, that they are not interested in a diverse governance structure. That's fine. But if they decide that they are, then let's continue.
I think that, Matthew, we should have them weigh in. I think that the question should be, is a faster change necessary than what we've been achieving so far? Right. And if there is, let's bring up those particular items. But I would like to hear from the working group leads.
Okay, so how are we going to organize that so we can close this out and have an action on it?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so let's have an action, so we can have an action on it. Like, what are we going to do to make that happen? Obviously, this won't happen pre 1.3. We'll do it after 1.3. But the action, I guess, is that then what are we actually going to propose, right? What's the question we're going to pose? And Jeremy, you can weigh in here, obviously, if you don't think this is the right approach, or if you want to just have the PSG decide these things.
I mean, I think my personal opinion is, like, a lot's changed from 2018. The project's evolved a lot. Instead of going back to the doc and, sort of trying to see whether everything T has been dotted and done according to the doc, I would, per Yang and everybody else is suggesting, is like, ask people, what are the problems we have today? And how do we need to solve them, right? And so, yeah, and I would go from there.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
If I
Anyone
could
else want to
weigh
weigh
in,
in?
if I could weigh in, I just want to say that we're very close to a major milestone for Kubeflow. And while I understand why this discussion is important, I propose that we put it on the shelf and keep our heads down for the next month and deliver on what we need to deliver right now, because this is a major milestone and we need to make this milestone. So right now we need to focus on what's important and deliver on all the great work that the working groups have been doing so far.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to keep this on the back burner. I'm sorry for letting this go so far over. I just think it seems like there is some discontent in the community, but it's not just me. Well, I'm not just speaking for myself here. Like, that there should be some diversity in the governance, not the technical leadership, and that's already diverse. We've already agreed that's working groups, but the governance of Kubeflow itself. This is what I'm saying. Like, the people who decide what a working group means.
So after 1.3 is delivered and we have the recap and we figure 1.4 is planning out, then let's have a discussion. Let's have in one of the meetings, let's invite all the working group people and ask them what, and a simple question to me would be, what do we need the TSG to do, or right, explicitly, that they're not doing now? And then the second question would be kind of the broader thing that you brought up is, but I think just to time box this particular question about the TSC, TSG, whatever those acronyms all are, is more like, is there a problem with the working group leads right now, or in 6 weeks when we get there, what are those problems that need to be solved, right?
I don't think there's any real problems. It's more that just the community should be in charge of Kubeflow. That's kind of the concept. That's
Matthew,
and I guess,
and I'll say this again. I truly believe from a working group level, just as Google designed it, that the community is. And the
Yeah,
people
from a
that
technical
develop
level,
something
absolutely.
work are impacting, and that's my view of watching this for 3 years.
Absolutely. I'm not arguing from a technical perspective. They are in charge. Absolutely. But there are some questions that still need to be answered around governance things. And we won't go into them now. But anyway, so I agree. Let's time watch
You
this.
know,
There.
I'm
Sorry for
from,
taking this so much.
founder of a project, which is Google, and to some extent, the community needs to respect it. As a person who started an open source project myself, I understand these issues. I don't want to be really part of this debate because it's up to the founder of a project, and we need to respect that as well. You know.
Obviously, David did weigh in and try and make some comments, but those are by the by. So, yeah, and Jeremy obviously is another founder as well. But yeah, so anyway, so I just want to thank everyone for waiting this much extra time. I'm sorry for taking your time, guys, but hopefully we can all work together to get 1.3 to be as awesome as it possibly can and deliver something that brings lots of new users in and gets everyone really excited. And we can, continue to deliver awesome things. And that's all we're trying to do here. But yeah, cool. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, everyone who's commented here. And hopefully we can keep it on a positive note. So yes. Anyone want to say anything before we go? Oh, no.
Thanks for all your
Your
work,
birthday
Matthew.
soon, right? March 28th, right? 3 years?
Oh, yep. Okay, that's a good milestone. 3 years. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, guys. Okay, I'm gonna end the meeting, but thanks.
Cool. Bye, everyone.